araw po sa inyong lahat. I am assigned the topic of popular religiosity, to be specific, popular religious practices during Lenten season and Holy Week. Let us first begin by discussing what the document of Vatican II says to us about popular religiosity. And this is it. Popular devotion of Christian people are to be highly endorsed, provided they accord with the laws and norms of the Church, and above all, when they are ordered by the Apostolic See. And if there is a popular religious practice that most of the time is ordered by the Apostolic See, it means that the recognition carries with it an indulgence. And there are a lot of popular religious practices during Lent that the Pope had granted indulgence. The second aspect is this. This devotion should be passioned that they harmonize with the liturgical seasons, accord with the liturgy, and are in some way derived from it and lead the people to it. Wala po tayong problema diyan kapag ang pag-uusapan ay Lenten season. Kasi lahat ng ating mga ginagawang debosyon ay naaayon naman sa liturhiya. Ang problema natin ay yung kabila. Most of the time, instead of leading people into the liturgy, it takes away people from the liturgy. Example, the reading of the Passion is so popular in the Tagalog region that sometimes people do not anymore participate in the Holy Week liturgy, like the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday, like the veneration of the cross on Good Friday, and like the Easter Vigil. So in our diocese, we put up a guideline when to stop and when to begin the reading of the Passion, so that the people will have time and the people will be encouraged to participate in the liturgical celebration, especially of the so-called Easter Triduum. And we are being cautioned also. It does not mean that we will incorporate into the liturgy such form of popular religiosity as processions, Rosary, and novenas. It is St. Paul VI that tells us, and rightly sounded with an alarm, he warned that such practice would result into turning the memorial of the Paschal mystery into simply a setting for popular devotions. However, you will be surprised because there are exceptions to the rule. And one of the exceptions we will find in the Holy Week celebration. If you want to see a more extensive comment on popular religiosity, there is this thick document, Directory of Popular Religiosity and the Liturgy. And you can read it, and you will find out how rich other countries' popular devotion is, especially during the Lenten season, especially in the Church of Africa, which has many martyrs, like the devotion to the blood of Jesus. Strictly speaking, what are popular devotions? What do they consist of? Mostly these: processions, altars and shrines, religious drama, and in some cases, dance. According to the document of Vatican II, we are being encouraged that in all of these things, the treasures of the Bible are to be opened up more lavishly so that the richer fare may be provided for the faithful. And hence, most of our popular devotions now, even the Station of the Cross, even the praying of the Rosary, would have what we call scriptural readings, so that the treasure of the Bible will be opened up to the faithful. Now, let us go into the different popular devotions that we have during the Lenten season, Holy Week, and even the Paschal Triduum. The first one, of course, is the Station of the Cross, or sometimes what we call the Way of the Cross. In fact, this is so popular in the church that even the Pope, during Good Friday, leads the Station of the Cross in the Coliseum. What really is the devotion all about? It recapitulates, by means of picture and sacred images, the routes taken by Christ to his crucifixion. So this is what the Station of the Cross is. It was popularized to us, and the structure that we have was given to us by a prior of the Carmelite order, John Bonifacius, in his book, Spiritual Pilgrimage. In that book, he gave us the structure and the numbering, which is 14 stations of the cross. Formerly, there were only 7. Sometimes there are more than 14. It is the prior of the Carmelite order that gave us the number 14. What should we do when we make the Station of the Cross? It is only this: while the person is mentally, by the way, in Jerusalem, it takes him or her along the way of the cross. So in fact, when you make the Station of the Cross, kapag kayo po yung nag-iistasyon ng cross, mentally at least in our meditation, we are being taken up into Jerusalem, where this really took place. And Pope Clement XII granted the indulgence to the one who makes the Station of the Cross as if he had made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So even if you do not have money to go to Jerusalem, even now in times of COVID, it's so difficult to take your trip, you, by making the Station of the Cross, is already making a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And it is Pope Benedict who erected the Station of the Cross in the Roman Coliseum. What is the requirement when we make the Station of the Cross to gain indulgence? The only significant requirement is to meditate upon the Passion of Christ. Walk from one station to another. You have to walk, because it is following Christ who walks in this path, who carried the cross. And then pray for the intention of the Pope, while of course meditating on each station. There are several things that we have to do, especially during the Paschal Triduum. And one of these is that the Station of the Cross must be covered on Holy Thursday. This is to focus the attention of the people to the devotion to the Blessed Sacrament. On Holy Thursday evening, when we visit the church, we are not being asked to make the Station of the Cross. We are being asked to visit the Blessed Sacrament. And hence, I think all parishes should endeavor to cover the Station of the Cross at this day in the Paschal Triduum. It is on Good Friday that we are being asked to meditate on the Station of the Cross. In the Roman Missal, in the Roman Ritual, volume number 3, there is a blessing reserved for the Station of the Cross granted to the prior minors. So kung gusto po ninyo ng espesyal ang inyong Station of the Cross at kayo'y nagpundar ng bago, mang-imbita kayo na isang prior minor para magbendisyon ng inyong Station of the Cross. Today, we have 2 versions of the Station of the Cross. The first version is taken both from the Bible and from the Apocrypha. The second version that we have, the new one, are all taken from sacred scriptures, more or less. So when we look closely at this is the new Stations of the Cross. May I just make a comment that if your old Station of the Cross is really that old, carved, might be in wood, we should try to preserve it, even if we are already praying the new Station of the Cross, because this is part of the patrimony of your parish. I have seen, just a barrio chapel, and they have the Station of the Cross carved in mahogany. And all the stations, by the way, have names not in Tagalog, not in English, but in Spanish. So I think the Station of the Cross dates back during the Spanish period, and we should preserve them. Also, we should be reminded that this is a Station of the Cross. So the requirement is that all the images or scene must have a cross. And that's why when the Pope makes the Station of the Cross at the Coliseum, he carries this cross as he goes from one station to the next. So this is the most popular devotion that we have during Lenten season. The second thing is the so-called Visita Iglesia. You see, the Visita Iglesia is just a visit to the Blessed Sacrament. And the origin of this was when the Mass of the Lord's Supper, or in fact all the Masses, were transferred in the morning, and we were not allowed to say the Mass after noon. And therefore, what do you do during Holy Thursday? So people would visit one church after another, visiting the Blessed Sacrament. Second, at this period, the Blessed Sacrament, the tabernacle also is being emptied because formerly there was no communion on Good Friday. And hence, there was fasting. And therefore, they put the Blessed Sacrament on a temporary tabernacle, might be in the sacristy. Later on, as the devotion to the Blessed Sacrament increased, they put this in a decorated tabernacle, and they would put this out, and people would visit this during Holy Thursday. Now that the Mass is transferred in the evening, people still would go to churches after the Mass of the Lord's Supper and visit the Blessed Sacrament. May I remind you that you do not start the Visita Iglesia in the morning of Holy Thursday. Why? Because there is still no altar of repose with the Blessed Sacrament, and you are praying on an empty container. Second, there is no need to visit 14 churches because you are not making the Station of the Cross. You are visiting the Blessed Sacrament. And the tradition in Rome is only 7 churches. What is the reason for this? The reason really is the invitation of the Lord in His agony in the garden. At doon ay inanyayahan niya ang mga alagad at ang sabi, "Hindi ba kayo makapagbabantay kahit 1 oras man lang?" And that is why there is even no need to visit all these churches. You could spend the Visita Iglesia only in one church, 1 hour, praying and meditating on the Eucharist in that church. In the book that I wrote, we provide 2 options. One is a prayer for 7 churches, and another is just a holy hour spent in front of the altar of repose. And the meditation really is in the last words of Christ from the Gospel of John, starting from the comment of Jesus, of course, on John 6, and later on the Passion of Christ, and on His farewell discourse in the Gospel of John. The repository that you see here is quite an interesting repository. And this is part of this popular devotion. This repository goes mechanically down. And then when the priest approaches the altar of repose, the tabernacle will open. And when he places the ciboria on this temporary tabernacle or repository, it closes. Then it lights up. And as he incenses it, the repository goes up. It has a mechanism. And that's part and parcel of popular religiosity. There is a sense of drama. Also, the Blessed Sacrament is not supposed to be exposed. As the liturgy tells us, it is placed in a repository or a temporary tabernacle. And this is what we visit in the Visita Iglesia. There is another custom associated on Holy Thursday and on this visit. You'll find this in some Tagalog region, and this is the so-called caridad. Caridad means charity, and it is associated with the Mass of the Lord's Supper. There, the new commandment is given to us, love one another as I have loved you. Formerly, people do not ride cars in visiting churches. They walk. And as they walk, there are certain houses that will have table outside their homes with food and drink offered to these people who walks and visit several churches and visit the Blessed Sacrament as a form of charity and love, feeding the pilgrims, feeding the poor, which is why in some churches in Bulacan, you will see that they do feed you a fare on Holy Thursday, and it is part of this Visita Iglesia and Holy Thursday devotion. This is what the Visita Iglesia is all about. The third popular devotion that we have, which is becoming popular now in the Philippines, is the so-called Rosary of the $7 of Mary. This is popularized to us by the Order of Servites. It was approved on February 11, 1925. The feast formerly is in Lenten season, and it is Friday before Palm Sunday. And hence, 9 days before the feast of the so-called Viernes Dolores, or Friday of Sorrow, the Rosary of the 7 Sorrows of the Blessed Virgin Mary is recited. However, you may recite this during all the Saturdays of the Lenten season. The 7 Sorrows of Mary is meditating on how Mary shared in the suffering and passion of Christ. And hence, there is the 7 mystery, the prophecy of Simeon, the flight into Egypt, the loss of the child Jesus in the temple, the meeting of Jesus and Mary on the way of the cross, the crucifixion, the taking down of the body of Jesus on the cross, and the burial of Jesus. When you look at all these 7 sorrows of Mary, you will see that it is Mary sharing in the passion, death of Christ. And hence, this is popular devotion also during the Lenten season. By the way, there is another devotion connected with this during the Easter season, and that is the 7 Joys of Mary. The third, which is the most popular form of devotion during Holy Week, is what we call procession. Mga prosesyon at mga banal na imahen sa mahal na araw. What is a procession? You know, when I was being interviewed sometimes, the secular press would always call it a parade. You see, a parade is different from a procession. A procession is a religious devotion. And it is really a movement from one place to another or back to the place of origin for religious purpose. So it is not for show, it is for religious purpose. And we should be aware of that. And the landas ng pagpapakabanal, the only pastoral letter of the Philippine bishops written in Tagalog, tells us what a procession is about. Isang tanda ng kalagayan ng simbahan, isang peregrinong naglalakbay na kasama at kasunod ni Kristo. And hence, there is something that is absent in a parade that is always and has always to be present in the procession. Ano po iyon? Yung cereales. It is the cross and the two candles besides the cross. Because what we follow is the cross. What we follow is Jesus crucified. It is not a parade. It is a procession. And we follow Jesus Christ. And this is the reason why we have the Tagalog saying, pahaba-haba man ang prosesyon, sa simbahan din ang tuloy. What is the reason? Because, mga kapatid, ang hantungan ng paglalakbay ng sambayanan ng Diyos ay ang kaharian ng Diyos. And in the long run, ang langit. Napakahalaga na ang mga prosesyon ay magsimula kung gayon at magtapos sa isang simbahan, sapagkat ipinahihiwatig nito ang sambayanan ng Diyos na nagbubuhat sa Diyos at nagbabalik at naglalakbay pabalik sa Kaniya. And to ensure this, may I suggest that we do this. We bless the people and the images as they go back to church. In that way, we will always ensure that the people will really complete the procession and will return to its place of origin. Sapagkat alam naman po ninyo ang mga Pilipino, ang gusto nila parati mabindisyonan sila ng holy water. At ito'y isang mahalagang bagay. Kaya nga, sinasabi sa atin ng ating mga obispo sa landas ng pagkapakabanalang ganito, wala nang ibang araw sa buong taon na tinatawag ng mga Pilipino na mahal, kundi ang sanlinggong kinapapalooban ng mga araw ng paggunita sa pagpapakasakit, pagkamatay at muling pagkabuhay ng Panginoong Hesukristo. At ito ang makikita natin, malayang pinagpapalit ng mga Pilipino ang salitang banal at mahal. Ano po ang dahilan? Dahil para sa kanila, hindi magkaiba ang kahulugan ng dalawa. Mahal ang banal at banal ang mahal. Yan po ang dahilan kaya ang tawag natin sa sanlinggong pag-alala ng pagkapakasakit, kamatayan at muling pagkabuhay ng Panginoon ay tinatawag natin sa Pilipinas na mahal na araw. Kung talagang titinan ninyo sa Kastila, ang sinasabi Semana Santa, banal na araw. Pero sa Pilipino, only in the Philippines, ang tawag natin dito ay mahal na araw. Kaya po makikita natin na isang bagay. Ang mga prosesyon sa mahal na araw na nagmula pa nung panahon ng mga Kastila ay maituturing na isang anyo ng gumagalaw na katekesis na nagsasadula sa mahalagang pangyayari sa buhay ng Panginoong Hesukristo. At sa katunayan, mayroong mga lugar na ang mga imahen po ay gumagalaw. Halimbawa, pag kayo nagpunta sa Paete, may mga imahen doon na habang nagpo-prosesyon ay gumagalaw. Gayon din po sa Baliwag, dito sa Bulacan, may mga imahen na talagang gumagalaw habang nasa prosesyon. Sa gayon, kung ito'y isang magiging katekesis, meron tayong dapat gawin sa mga prosesyong ito. Ang una, mahalaga po na sana magkaroon tayo ng running commentary na ipinaliliwanag ang bawat paso, bawat tagpo sa prosesyon habang ito ay lumalabas o habang ito'y pabalik sa simbahan. Pangalawa, sapagkat hindi na alam ng maraming tao ang mga pangalan ng mga santong nakalagay dito, maganda sigurong ang bawat karo ay lagyan natin ng pangalan ng tagpo o ng mga santo na nakalagay sa karong ito, upang sa gayon higit silang makilala. Sa gayon, ang pagsasagawa ng mga ito ay ginugulita ng Kristiyano ang misteryo at pangyayaring nagliligtas na mula sa buhay ni Kristo. Kaya nga mahalaga na ang prosesyon ay hindi isang paghuhunta habang tayo lumalakad, kundi tayo ay nagdadasal. Sa baliwag po ay meron silang ginawa dito. Mayroong istasyon ng radyo na ibino-broadcast lamang habang nagpuprosesyon ang dasal na rosaryo, at lahat ng karo ay required na mayroong radyo sa kanilang karo na nasa sound system, at gayon din ang mga bahay, upang sa gayon habang lumalakad ang prosesyon, lahat ay nagdadasal. Walang nag-iingay dahil nga isa lamang ang nadidinig mula sa istasyon ng radyong ito. Ito'y ang dasal ng rosaryo. Gayon din naman ang prosesyon ay nag-aanyaya sa tao tungo sa isang panibagong katapatan upang isabuhay ang halimbawa ni Jesus. Kaya nga't yung iba't ibang tagpo ng buhay ni Jesus ang inilalarawan dito. At kung kayo'y nag-iisip ng magdagdag ng mga imahen, siguro ito ang magandang ating isalarawan, ang iba't iba pang tagpo sa pagkapakasakit ng Panginoon, o kaya po ang iba't ibang tagpo sa Ebanghelyo sa mga linggo ng Kwaresma, tulad ng pagtukso ni Satanas sa Panginoong Hesus, tulad ng pagbabagong anyo ng Panginoong Hesus. Ang mga prosesyon din ay nagsisilbing pagpapahayag ng pangako o yung tinatawag po nating panata ng mga Kristiyano na sumunod kay Kristo at isabuhay ang mga bagay na pinahahalagahan ng kaniyang mensahe. Sa gayon ay maganda rin na turuan natin ang tao at paalalahanan kapag nagpuprosesyon. Halimbawa, ngayon tinatawagan tayo ni Papa Franciscong pangalagaan ang kalikasan, the environment, na hindi dapat nagkakalat habang nagpuprosesyon, na hindi dapat inaagaw pagkatapos ng prosesyon ang mga bulaklak sa karo. Hindi ko pumalaan, ito ba'y bagong superstitious belief ng mga Pilipino na palagay ko'y hindi tama at dapat nating ipaalala sa kanila. Sapagkat po ang prosesyon ay isang pampublikong pahayag ng pananampalataya na humihingi ng lakas ng loob mula sa mga nakikiisa rito. Kaya sana maging talagang pagpapahayag ito ng ating pananampalataya. It is an expression of faith. So we should encourage the faithful to dress decently on a procession, pray and not eat during procession. Tell them that it is part of the praxis and the practice to walk as a sacrifice during the Lenten season. Because ano nga po ba ang mga prosesyon sa mahal na araw? Ito'y waring isang paglalakbay mula sa kabiguan patungo sa tagumpay, mula sa kamatayan tungo sa muling pagkabuhay. At ito sana lalo ngayong nakaranas ang ating mga kababayan ng iba't ibang mga pagsubok, ang makita nila kung mababalik ang prosesyon natin ngayong mahal na araw. Pangalaway, dapat din nating makita ang mga banal na imaheng ito sa ating pagpuprosesyon. Dapat din nating malaman at maipaalala ano ba ang mga imahen. Kaya po, bayaan niyong magkomentaryo ako ng konti dito. Una, ang mga imahen sa simbahang Katoliko ay nakaugat sa misteryo ng pagkakatawang tao ni Kristo, the mystery of incarnation, sapagkat si Kristo ang larawan ng Diyos na hindi nakikita, gaya ng sulat ni Apostol San Pablo sa mga taga-Colosas. Sapagkat sabi nga ng ating mga obispo, sa kanilang liham pastoral lalandas ng pagpapakabanal, napakaganda po nitong buong buo. Kung kayo may panahon, basahin po ninyo. Ito po ang kanilang kaisa-isang pastoral letter sa Tagalog. Ay ito ang kanilang sinasabi. Para sa mga Pilipino, hindi sapat na makita o marinig lamang ang banal. Kailangan ito'y kanilang mahawakan at maramdaman. Yun ay mahalaga, mahawakan at maramdaman. Dahil ang Diyos na banal ay hindi hiwalay sa mga bagay na banal. Ang paghipo sa mga bagay na itinuturing na paghaplos na rin sa Diyos ay isang paraan upang mabahiran ng kabanalan niya. At huwag po nating kalimutan, maging yung babaeng may karamdaman ay sinabing, mahipo ko lang ay lalaylayan ng kanyang damit, ako ay gagaling na. Kaya ito po ang paliwanag sa atin ng mga obispo tungkol sa mga ginagawa ng mga Pilipino. Hindi ito pamahiin. Ito'y bahagi ng ating pananampalataya. Ang pagbibihis din sa mga imahen ng mamahaling alahas, damit at palamuti ay nagpapahiwatig na ang kabanalan ay itinuturing na isang mahalagang bagay at sa pamamagitan nito'y ipinahahayag ang kaibhan at karangalan ng mga banal. Hindi po ito basta kumbagay palabas lamang. Mayroon po itong dahilan. At ito ang dahilan ng mga Pilipino. Ano naman ang dahilan kaya tayo mayroong kandila? Sapagkat maliwanag ang sabi ni Kristo, ako ang ilaw ng sanlibutan. Ang sumusunod sa akin ay magkakaroon ng ilaw sa kanyang buhay at di na lalakad sa kadiliman. John 8:12. Kaya nga sinabi rin naman ni Kristo sa ating lahat, lalo sa kanyang mga alagad, kayo ang ilaw ng sanlibutan. Kayo ang ilaw ng sanlibutan. Dapat ninyong paliwanagin ang inyong ilaw sa harapan ng mga tao at nawa po yung kandilang hawak natin magpaalala sa atin na ang ating buhay ay dapat ding maging ilaw sa iba, halimbawa ng pananampalataya, hindi pakitang tao lamang. Tayo ang ilaw upang makita ang inyong mga mabubuting gawa at purihin ang inyong amang nasa langit, mula sa Ebanghelyo ni San Mateo. At dito'y ipinaalala rin sa atin, kaya nga raw natin inilalagay ang mga imahe ni Kristo ng Mahal na Birhen, isang santo o santa sa ibabaw ng andas o karo, sapagkat walang nagsisindi ng ilaw. Pagkatapos ay ilalagay yon sa ilalim ng takalan. Kasi yung mga santo'y nagsisilbi ring liwanag sa atin ng pananampalataya. Sa halip, inilalagay yon sa talagang patungan upang matanglawan ang lahat ng nasa bahay. Sila po ang bayani ng pananampalataya. Sa gayon, kung paanong ang mga banal ay nagsisilbing ilaw na tatanglaw sa mga mananampalataya, ang bawat Kristiyano'y tinatawagan din naman at inaatasan na magsilbing liwanag sa iba. Yan po ang dahilan kaya tayo mayroong kandila sa ating pagpoprosesyon at sa iba pang gawain sa ating simbahan. Gayon din naman, ipinaalala nito ang isa pang bagay. Ito'y tanda ng paggalang sa mga banal at paalala sa binyag na tinanggap ng mga binyagan ang liwanag ni Kristo. Huwag nating kalilimutan na ang panahon po ng Kwaresma ay panahon din na ipinaalala sa atin kung tayo ba'y naging tapat sa ating ipinangako sa sakramento ng binyag. Kaya nga ang mga prosesyon ay mayroong mga ilang bagay na makikita tayo at yun ay binanggit ko na, mayroong krus. Kung minsan naman may mga bandera sapagkat ang banderang ito'y nagpapaalala sa atin, gaya nga ng sabi ni San Ignacio sa kanyang retreat at doon sa kanyang spiritual exercises, tayo'y tinatawagan na sumunod sa bandera ni Kristo, hindi sa bandera ng Diablo. The banner of Christ. Yan ang sabi ni San Ignacio ng Loyola. Mayroon din po itong mga imahen na ipinaliwanag natin kanina. Kung minsan, mayroong mga relikya ng banal na dinadala rin sa prosesyon. Bagamat ito'y wala sa Pilipinas, ang lahat ng ito ay bahagi ng ating prosesyon sa mahal na araw o kung minsan ay bahagi sa Kwaresma. Sapagkat po sa ibang lugar, ang istasyon ng krus ay isinasama ang Nazareno. Sa gayon, mga ilang paalaala sa mga magpupundar ng imahen. Kasi kuminsan, ibig na ibig magpundar ng imahen pero hindi marunong mag-alaga. Una po, dapat siguraduhin may lugar na paglalagakan ito. Pangalawa, hindi po mura ang pagpupundar ng imahen. May mga gastusin, damit, sayal, birina, karo, motor, pakain, bulaklak. Kaya nga yung mga imahen nung panahon ng Kastila ay sinuguro ng mga praile na mayroong gagastusin. Yung po ang dahilan kaya kung inyong i-interviewin, if you will interview the owners of old images, you will find out that their images own rice fields. May pag-aari po itong bukirin kasi yung kita ng bukirin ay para lamang sa gastusin ng imahen kapag ito'y inilalabas sa mahal na araw. Yung pong soledad sa baliwag ng araw, ang pag-aaring bukirin noon ay 35 hectares. At yun ay gastusin lang sana ng Birhen ng Soledad. Kailangan ding alalahanin natin ang kahalili sapagkat nakalulungkot kung walang hahalili sa atin na nagpundar tayo ng imahen. Ilagay natin ito sa kasulatan, ika nga'y hindi biling laway lamang, upang sa gayon merong hahalili sa atin sa pangalaga nito. Gayon din naman ay ipagtabi at ipag-ipon ng gastusin ng puon. Maglagay din ng aklat ng inventaryo ng mga gamit. Ano po ba ang uri ng mga gamit ng puon? Kung tayo'y may debosyon sa puon, dapat alam din natin ang mga pangalan nito. And hence, let us deal a little bit of the form of the santos. And this is how they are called. There are images of saints that do not have really a whole body. You will only see their hands and then the neck to the head. There is no feet. Ang tawag po dito ay debastidor. Yan po'y binibihisan at para maganda ang bihis, maluang yung ibaba. Kaya ang tawag nila ay debastidor. Mayroon namang imahen na ang tawag natin ay debulto o bulto. Ito po yung nakakarb na buong buo pati mga damit. Kaya ang tawag ay debulto. Dito nanggaling yung ating salitang rebulto. Kasi buong buo yun, pati yung kanilang mga damit. Yun naman pong isa ay tinatawag sa Kastilang degosne. At yung degosne, gosne means fasten, because you fasten the dress of the saints. And that is why they are called degosne. Maaaring buo ang katawan nito, maaaring ito'y debastidor sa ilalim. You know, even how they dress the saints then is with reverence. This is not, according to tradition, supposed to be seen by everybody. The saint is dressed in a room, not outside the room. Sometimes they would even put a curtain around the saints while they are vesting the saints. Saints also have what we call vestments and accessories. You see, there are different kinds of vestments or what we call dress for the saints. First is what we call Estopado. The Estopado is the decoration that you find in the debulto. And this is this gold embossed thing on the sides of the images that you see on their dresses. This is called Estopado. Hindi po ito ulam. Okay. This is part of a decoration. The second is called Burda de Oro. This is the vestment for the santos, usually of gold thread. And that's why it's called Burda de Oro. And then, you have different kinds of crowns, depending on the images. So we have what we call the aureola. The aureola is the typical thing that we see on the saints. And it is really a halo or a circle of metal put around the head of the images to signify their holiness, to signify the light of Christ, to signify that they have shared in the holiness of Christ. You know, in Rome, when you see certain mosaic, they will have two distinctions. Sometimes there is an aureola and he is a saint, and sometimes there is a square light like that, and you know that the person is not a saint but only an important person. The other one is called Diadema, and it is a circle or an open crown. The modern name that we have for this is tiara, and usually they are placed on women saints. And then you have the other one, and this is called the Corona Imperial. It is a tiara or a double crown, usually meant only for the Santo Niño and the Blessed Virgin Mary. The other one is payong. It is an umbrella-shaped aureola placed above the head of the Santo, or sometimes called umbelo. And it is quite nice because it moves as the carro moves. Usually, it's placed on the women, but sometimes I see the image of St. John having this kind of aureola. For Jesus Christ, it's quite different. You have these three rays, and the name of this in Spanish is potencia. Potencia, of course, is power. And the three rays representing supposed to be the three faculties of the soul, according to the analogy, the memory, the mind, and the will. The other thing is the so-called rostrillo. It is always made of precious metal and was encircled in the face of the Virgin to give her or to focus the emotion of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Sometimes it is only a half moon, and in this case, it is called resplendor. It is a media luna, so that the upper head or part of the face is being emphasized on the Blessed Virgin Mary. The cross also would have different parts. The signage is called in Spanish rotolo, and this is really the inre. In this case, you see that it follows the scriptural account that it is written in three languages. Sometimes there is the sun rays above, and this, of course, denotes morning and evening if there is a moon, or Jesus, the true sun. There is the nail of the cross. And to emphasize the cross, sometimes you will have rays called ramages, so that there is an emphasis on the cross. At the foot of the cross, you have this. You have the skull and the cross bones, the calavera and the canilias. According to the Legenda Aurea, the cross was planted on the tomb of Adam, and hence the first blood that flowed from the cross was the skull of Adam, signifying that Jesus' blood washed away our sins. So do not think that Jesus is a pirate. This is really supposed to be the bone of Adam. Now, we go to the salubong. As I have told you at the very beginning, there is an exception to the popular religiosity being incorporated into the liturgy. And it is this unique picture in the Philippines called salubong. Because we were allowed to incorporate at the beginning of the Mass the salubong by the sacred congregation of the divine worship. The salubong, or what we call encuentro or sugat, in Italy it's called incontro, sometimes Spain posadas, is really a procession, and there are two processions. Sometimes it is the procession of the risen Christ, sometimes you see the sorrowful mother, or really the Blessed Virgin Mary, that is, whose face is covered already by a manto. Why? Because it is the image of a joyful mother, the Nuestra Señora de la Alegría. And there is an encounter. It is a sign of greeting. Both images are made to bow to each other. And that's why they are not in the carroza. They are in the andas. So that the andas is carried by people so that the images could bow to each other. The salubong is really a Marian devotion. And it is Saint Ambrose who answered people. But you see, in Scripture you do not find Jesus meeting Mary. And Saint Ambrose would tell us, what is obvious is not anymore written. It is obvious that Jesus will go and meet and greet his mother. And that's why it is not anymore written in sacred scripture according to Saint Ambrose. The salubong is specifically a Marian devotion. It is Jesus really together with Mary in this scenery, and has the rejoicing image of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and that is what we sing, Regina Coeli Laetare, Queen of Heaven, rejoice. There is a Tagalog version of this, Reyna ng Langit. In the Philippines, this Marian devotion is both a procession and a popular drama of Jesus meeting his mother. And that's why in some parishes, Jesus is accompanied by men while Mary is accompanied by women. And that is what you have. In some instances, especially in old parishes, you will find out that the image of the risen Christ is smaller than the Blessed Mother. According to some anthropologists and also some historians, because the early wood carvers were all Chinese. And the Chinese possibly carved the images like this to indicate the Filipino, and yes, Chinese perception of the value towards the mother, the respect to the mother. You also have an angel dress, a child dressed as an angel, being lowered from what is called a Galilea or a canopy, while there is a singing of the Regina Coeli. And in some places, the salubong, by the way, is quite dramatic. If you have watched the salubong in Agono, there is this dancer with this flag going around like this, and they are called magbabate because it is like the batter of the egg that they would dance to greet the risen Christ. Then there is this child inside a lantern shaped like a petal, and the lantern will open, and the child dressed as an angel would go down, lowered, and he will take up the veil of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and then they will now incense the image. In Baliwag, this is more dramatic because you have Christ meeting Mary, there is this lantern, and then the lantern will open, the angel would appear, the angel would pour a perfume on the head of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the angel will take the veil, and then a dove will appear. And they will the dove will try to get the veil from the angel. Finally, the dove will succeed. The dove will get the veil, and then the dove will fly and drop the veil. And whoever gets the veil receives a prize. It's a puppetry. The only real dove is the dove after the dove had entered again the Galilea, and it will fly carrying this veil. The rest is pure puppetry, but you think it's really a real dove that will go down and take this, including the angel. So there is no danger for any child falling on this. So what is the salubong? It is the celebration of the Easter Vigil, or we are told it is really the celebration, or sometimes at dawn of the beginning of the Mass. And here it is the completion of the apparition of Jesus to his mother, the first thing on the morning of his resurrection. So in fact, the salubong is part of the dawn Mass here in the Philippines, and it is the entrance rite. Immediately after the salubong, when the priest enters the church, he already intones the Gloria. Even by the way, the readings, we are allowed to change. The gospel is different. It is Jesus asking, who is my brother, who is my sister, who is my mother. The congregation for the divine worship allowed the salubong to be the substitute for the entrance to this Mass. It is held outside the church at dawn on Easter Sunday and is followed by the Mass. So let me just make some caution, because sometimes the salubong is so popular that very few people will attend the Easter Vigil. So let us try to balance it when we have this salubong and the Easter Vigil. We can always make a point to catechize the people and have a catechumen that we will baptize on the Easter Vigil. I always have a catechumen, and I always baptize in my Easter Vigil celebration. So we can always have the two celebrations, and there will still be people attending both the popular devotion and the liturgical devotion that we have. So now I come to the end of the popular devotion, and this is what we call the Passion. The Passion, taken from the word passus, partire, pagdaan, pagtawid. It is really a passage from the suffering, death, to the resurrection of Christ. The Pasyong Mahal has many names for us. It is called Pasyong Mahal. It is called Pasyong Genesis. It is called Pasyong Pilapil. However, there are many pasyon. The Ilocano pasyon is different from the Tagalog pasyon. So, we should bear that in mind. The Tagalog pasyon is called Pasyong Genesis because it begins with Genesis, not just on the suffering of Christ. It is called Pasyong Pilapil, and a lot of people are thinking that it is Father Mariano Pilapil who wrote the Passion. No, he did not write the Passion. We do not really know who wrote the Passion. He was the one who gave the approval for the Passion. Although maybe he corrected it, because you cannot give an approval if you cannot correct. Father Mariano Pilapil is from Bulacan, so he is well versed in Tagalog poetry, and presumably he will have corrected it. He is from Bulacan, Bulacan. And yes, the one who put the Latin there is also from Bulacan. He corrected the original Latin. He was the original editor of Cor Manila, Father Amador Wisco Cruz. He was formerly the parish priest of Makinabang. He arranged again and corrected the Latin. Unfortunately, during the previous reprinting and reprinting, some of the Latin again is wrong. So in fact, the Passion needs some correction again. What is the content of the Passion? Sometimes we do not appreciate the Passion because of its old Tagalog form. And this is a challenge for us. If we want the Passion again to be popularized, maybe a group of people could update the Tagalog language without removing the rhyme and the poetic beauty of the Passion. The other aspect of this is it is supposed to be a sung meditation. And since it is a meditation, we are not supposed to include modern rock songs. But do not think that the tune of the Passion is only one tune, a boring tagulaylay. The Jesuit Communication formerly published the collection of the different tune of the Passion from all the Tagalog region. And I think even from some parts of Luzon. You could try to see whether they still have that recording, and you will find the beauty of the music of the Passion. Where did the Passion get its poetic account? Of course, from the Bible, based on the Latin Vulgata translated by Saint Jerome. Kaya nga, doon yung from the Gospel of Matthew, ang pagdalaw ng tatlong hari. Doon yung the miracle of turning of the water into wine from the Gospel of John. But besides the Gospel and the Bible, the Passion got some of its part from the Apocrypha, like ang pagkamatay ni San Jose, the meeting of Jesus and Veronica, the name of the two thieves that was crucified besides Christ. Mayroon pong pangalan sila sa Pasyon, Hestas at Dimas. Where else? Well, it got some of the account from the Legenda Aurea, like ang pagkatagpo ni Emperatriz Elena sa tunay na krus. Yes, that is part and parcel of the Passion. But the Passion really is a prayer. So ano po ang simula at wakas ng Pasyon? Panalangin sa Mahal na Birhen. You do not begin right away reading the Passion. You have to pray with the Blessed Virgin Mary. You do not end the reading of the Passion by simply ending the last chapter. No, you have to pray again because the Passion really is a prayer. What else do we find in the Passion? Mga huling araw ni Jesus. And yes, this is based on the Gospel of Matthew. So, if you want to see the basis of the Holy Week, according to the Passion, it is on the Gospel of Matthew. We also find in the Passion several things, mga aral na dapat isabuhay na Kristiyano. After each chapter, you have aral. And the aral, by the way, they do sing it. Aral. Ang A ay adorasyon, ang ere ay resurreksyon, ang A ay asensyon, ang L ay lamentasyon. And this is being sung. What is the aral? Ang ilan po dito, paggalang sa magulang, o anak, mapagsuway sa ama't inang magulang, matuto ka aniya. Dito'y iyong pagmasdan, ang gawang kababaan nitong Diyos ng alam, Jesus Christ. What else? Tumulong sa nangangailangan, pagtitiis, kalayaan. By the way, the concept of freedom that the Filipinos had in the Revolution was taken from the Passion. And it is in the aral. At mayroon pong karagdagang nilalaman ng Pasyon. And you know, I was able to share and use it in the lockdown when we were not even allowed to visit those who are dying in the hospital. And at the back of the Passion, we have several things that will help people who are dying. At ito po yun. ang orasan batay sa pasyon ng Panginoon. At meron pong pagtatagubilin sa naghihingalo, pa Jesus. So what did I do during the time of the pandemic when somebody came to me and said, we cannot even visit the hospital, we could only talk to them on the phone. And I said, when they are dying, read to them on the phone the pagtatagubilin sa naghihingalo. What else? The litany of the saints. Pagtulong sa namamatay. As in their last agony and last breath, the Passion would have all this prayer, which we could have. And then, of course, it will even have mga dapat ituro sa paaralan. Lastly, there is this beautiful poem at the end of the Passion. I will only quote one, but if you go, it has several of these, that Jesus Christ is having a dialogue with us. And when you read it, you will see how rich the Passion is. And maybe we will come to appreciate it more. And this is the question. Bakit mo ako tinatawag na guro? Bakit mo akong tinatawag na guro, ngunit hindi mo naman pinakikinggan ng aking mga aral? And this would go on and on. Bakit mo ako tinatawag na daan? Bakit mo ako tinatawag na liwanag? Bakit mo ako tinatawag na tinapay? And all this name given by Christ. And hopefully when we read the Passion, we will appreciate it more. These, my dear brothers and sisters, are the popular devotions and religious practices that we have during the Lenten season and the Paschal Triduum. Hopefully, we will profit from it if we really understand it and celebrate it in prayer and with devotion, that in all things God may be glorified.